Chapter Spooks.
G'day, and welcome to Chapter Spooks, where we talk about the books that keep your kids up at night. And today, I want to start with a theory that I have. See, the book we're looking at today was written by Betsy Haynes. Now, whether you've been following along or not, you should know that Betsy Haynes is the creator of Bone Chillers. Not only did she write the first 10 books, but when she started working on the television series, she was always credited as the creator. Always, every book says created by. Except this one. This one just says by Betsy Haynes. And in fact, in the back cover, it actually has a thing saying about the author, talking all about Betsy Haynes herself. But here's the thing. Bone Chillers has 23 books in the series. Now, for those of you who don't know, and this is only something I've picked up after having so many books that I own in these kinds of Chapter Spook series, books under contract, where they say we want a series of these books, tend to have a pretty standard number. I've found that a lot of books seem to be done in batches of 6, so they'll say, okay, we'll contract you to do 6 books, and then 6 more, and then 6 more, that kind of a thing. But 23, that is an odd number, but it's also one number off 24, which is a multiple of 6. And so my theory is that the reason why this book is written by Betsy Haynes, even though the next book isn't, and then the last book isn't either, I think the reason why she had to write number 21 is there was some issue with the contract. They contracted some ghostwriter who either didn't finish on time or their manuscript was rejected for whatever reason. And so I feel like they then went to the creator and said, look, we need a book. We're coming up to deadline. Can you write something for us? Now, I don't have any proof that this is what happens, but the reason why I believe this theory is, first of all, to explain why Betsy Haynes wrote number 21 and not the last 2. But more importantly, this book is terrible. This is a horrendous book. I hated this book. But I know that Betsy Haynes can write better than this. I usually only mark her down for something that's problematic, but this book is just badly written. And so my theory is that the reason why it's badly written is because Betsy Haynes was under the pressure, under the thumb. She had to write this in a short deadline. And whilst I will always promote that I love writing, I encourage people to write. If you like fiction, give it a go. The reality of the collision between art and commerce is that when you turn something that even that you love into something that is your occupation, that is still labor. And so I think that the fact that she was put under pressure means that this work didn't turn out the way that anyone hoped it would. So, if you want to know why I thought this book was so terrible, we're going to have to dive into the summary of Bone Chillers number 21, The Dog Ate My Homework, by Betsy Haynes. So in chapter 1, we're introduced to our main character, Azalea Appleton, although she prefers to be called Azzy. And Azzy has a problem with lying. She often lies to get out of doing her homework and other things, but the problem is she's not very good at it because she gets caught all the time. In fact, the reason why she just got home in chapter 1 is that she was sent home early for having lied to her teacher about not doing her homework. She tries to sneak in, but her mother catches her, and she confronts her because she, of course, got a phone call about the lies that she told, and so her mother says that she's grounded for 3 weeks. Azzy thinks this is unfair, because, of course she does, she's a child, but it's frustrating because she usually spends her afternoons with 2 of her friends who live in the same apartment building as her. It's a pair of twins that live just down the hall, but grounded means that they can't come over, so she's basically sent to her room to do her homework and think about why she shouldn't tell lies. So she skips her homework basically because she's just so frustrated. She thinks it's so unfair. 3 weeks? I just told a lie. I mean, this is just, it's a bit of characterization. Obviously she's told way more lies than that. That's why she's getting grounded. But she doesn't like the fact that she's there on her own, and so, hey, she comes up with a plan. She has a computer in her room. And even though her friends aren't usually online at this time of day, hey, maybe she can find something to chat with them. So she goes online, she finds a chat room, and she finds a particular chat room which says that there is a subgroup in the chat room called the Liars Club. So, since this piques her interest, Azzy decides to check out this chat room. But when she goes in, she sees that the room is actually empty. There's nothing except the system greeter. Now, for those of you who don't know, I didn't know this either. I was a child of the 90s where I just used instant messaging. I never used an online chat room. But thankfully, Azzy explains that the system greeter is usually a person or a little simple bot AI that just greets anyone who joins the chat room. And as he notices that even though the room says that she's the only person in it, System Greeter keeps talking to her, so she assumes it's another person. And System Greeter then explains how she can join the Liars Club. Now, this is a little bit confusing to explain, but thankfully the book, in the next chapter, our girl meets up with those two twins that are friends of hers, Josh and Tyler, and she explains to them what happens in the chat room. So rather than me explain it, I'll get Azzy to explain it for me. The Calloway twins were waiting by the elevator when Azzy left for school the next morning. She could never tell which one was which because they both had curly brown hair and dark eyes hidden behind huge glasses. That morning, they even had on matching red and brown striped t-shirts. She raced toward them. "Josh, Tyler, guess what?" she blurted. They answered with identical blank stares, but before they could say anything, she exploded with the news about the Liars Club and its System Greeter. "Huh?" Tyler asked, making a face. "Who are you trying to kid?" "At least let her finish her story," Josh said. Josh was more into computers than Tyler, so Azzy talked mostly to him as she explained what happened. "All I have to do is say, 'The dog ate it,' no matter what Mr. Popoff asks me," she said. System Greeter said if the teacher believes me, I'll get to find out how to start up my own Liars Club. When that happens, every lie I tell will come true. System Greeter promised. "Cool," Josh said. "Hey, I mean, what if there really is a way to get away with lying? Man, think what we could do." "All you have to do is say 'the dog ate it'?" Tyler asked. He gave Azzy another funny look, like he didn't believe a word she was saying. "Right." Then Azzy remembered there was more to it, the magic word. "Well, there is one more thing," she admitted. "I'm supposed to say some stupid word before I lie. I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's spelled S-H-S-G-I-C. Shusgik?" Josh asked. Tyler shook his head. "Shuzajik?" "How do I know?" Azzy muttered. System Greeter just put the letters on the screen. I'm lucky I can remember them, much less pronounce the word. "I dare you to try it," Josh said. "Say it every way you can think of. You can mumble it under your breath. Popoff won't hear you. I dare you." Azzy shrugged. She wished she hadn't told the twins about the Liars Club, because now Josh had dared her. Because now she would have to try it. And if her fib didn't fly, if the teacher didn't believe her, she'd get in trouble all over again. She might even get expelled from the school this time. Okay, that's kind of an interesting gimmick, that they don't actually know how to pronounce the secret word, and so they say it every which way they can. But based on the clues left in the book, because the kids don't always say it the same way every time. Sometimes they say shuzajig, sometimes they say shushgeek. But because of that, based on process of elimination, I've determined that the correct way to pronounce the word is shugsik, which doesn't make sense because that's not how the word is spelled, but whatever, it's magic, maybe that's just a thing. But this gets into my first issue with the writing in this book, and that's the general plot outline, because the majority of the events in this book, as you'll come to see, are the kids telling a lie, which comes true, which basically means that these kids are telling wishes. And if that's the case, that's not scary. I mean, Betsy tries. In this first scene, she says, "Oh, the dog ate it." And then she starts getting in trouble. Mr. Popoff is like, "What the hell are you talking about? This is nonsense, detention, whatever." And then she suddenly realizes, "Oh, I didn't say the magic word." Like, "Oh, tension, relief." Even though they established that literally like 5 pages ago, so only an idiot would forget this. That's not tension, that's just stupidity. But the second reason, and I don't even know why it's like this, but all of the other characters in this book are cartoon characters. And when I say that, they react in the way that you'd expect someone in a ridiculous cartoon would. So when it finally happens, she says the magic word, says the line again, then outside the window this giant Great Dane dog that starts barking, and they see it's got paper in its mouth. And then all the kids start cheering, and then they all laugh at Mr. Popoff, who goes beet red in the face. It's like, "Oh, fine, you do it this time." And you know what? Because I don't like this book, I'll skip to the next scene, because the kids go to her place, and then now the twins ask System Greeter, and it says, "Oh, here's one for you," but the reader doesn't learn what it is until the next scene. But the next scene, he's basically told the kids to tell the class, "Hey, there's going to be pizza. So we're going to get free pizza at lunchtime." But the kids forget the magic word again. Oh, shock horror. And then even when they say the word, because they say lunchtime, there's some tension until the bell rings when they finally get the pizza. But when the pizza arrives in the classroom, the kids start wolfing it down like animals, like they start ripping the boxes apart. It says that there's so much pizza sauce falls on the ground that it's like an ice rink. Even Mr. Popoff grabs a box of pizza and then huddles in the corner eating it like a scared gopher. Like, I do not understand why these human beings are acting like cartoon characters freaking out and screaming like, oh yeah, you're amazing. Oh, like, this feels like one of those and everyone clapped Reddit stories. You know what I'm saying? These people are acting in a way that no human being would ever act. And so all sense of tension is lost, because who cares how people would react to these wishes, because they're not reacting like a human would. Like in the very next chapter, the kids realize exactly what I said at the start, which is that, hey, these lies are basically wishes. How about we try that out? So they say the first thing that comes to their mind, I want to be rich. But they realize that they can't tell lies to each other because they're in the club. And I guess my headcanon is that it's because the other members of the Liars Club know it's a lie, so it doesn't work. So they decide to go to the street and tell some random stranger. For some reason, people run off, or one lady even thinks they're going to steal her purse. Again, cartoon characters. 3 random children walking across the street. You don't think they're going to mug you. But they then walk up to a homeless guy, and they say, hey, we're rich. And because he's a homeless guy, his first response is, well, give me some money. And the kids start pulling wads of $100 bills out of their pockets. And so they give one to the homeless man, who jumps up, clicks his heels and says, whoopee, and runs off down the street. And you know what? Little side note, little fun fact about myself, because I learned this about myself while reading this book. I've said before that writers should read bad books, because it can help you to understand how to avoid those things if you can read the bad books and understand them and analyze them. But something I learned about myself is that whilst I can endure a bad plot or bad character, I find bad writing repulsive. And I don't mean that as in, oh, it's disgusting. I mean, literally, I found myself putting the book down, and then I'd say, why the hell did I put the book down? I need to keep reading it. And it's because I was so sick of reading it, I wanted to stop. Like, a lot of you probably have heard the term page turner. Like, it's a weird term, and some comedians have even made fun of it because it's a ridiculous term. But what it means is it's a book that compels you to turn the page. You're like, oh, I want to know what happens next. This book is what I would call a shelf sitter. It compelled me to keep putting it down, but because I needed to keep reading it, because I wanted to know how to avoid some of this crap and talk to you guys about it, I had to keep picking it back up. And I realized after a while that emotionally, I would just felt exhausted having to, in my mind, try to fix all of the problems with this book. It was literally exhausting to read, and it was repulsive. I had to keep putting the book down and then picking it back up going, no, I have to finish the damn thing. And so it took way longer to read this than it should have. Anyway, sidetrack tangent thing over, because that old man ran off, the kids, yeah, they're happy they got money, but as they head back towards their hotel, they are approached by a group of, and I quote, scuzzy-looking teenagers. And this gang of kids basically says, hey, some old man said that he's rich and he got money from you 3 kids. So now it's our turn. Give us some money, you freaks. And the kids don't want to give them money because they're bullies and they're basically a gang of kids. And they try to say no. But when they try to grab at them, one of the kids says, you're nothing but filthy, money-grubbing pigs. But because in an earlier scene, for an arbitrary reason, he was trying to say the magic word, this then turns the 3 teenagers into pigs, who then start chasing the kids and trying to eat the money from their pockets. And so then the kids have to run to their house throwing money behind them that the pigs then start eating. And you know, this is the other issue with this story, is that because it's about wishes, this has the same issue that I had with Frank and Turkey 2, which is that it becomes an and-then plot. There's no reason leading up to the next event, because the reason it happened is because the kid just went, I wish for this, or in this case, oh, I lied about this, and then it happened. And so there's no logical agency behind what happens and then what follows. It's just, oh, and then we got magic pizza, and then kids turn into pigs, and then termites. Like, this stuff doesn't follow on, because it's literally just the first thing that was off the top of the kids' heads. But this next bit does follow on a little bit, and I kind of like it. See, there's a couple of things in this book that I do like, and I'll talk about them at the end of the summary. But I do like, they go to the system greeter, because once the kids are turned into pigs, and they run away from them after eating the money, they say, oh, you're not pigs anymore. And it doesn't work. So they go to system greeter for some kind of an explanation, because I thought everything that they said came true, right? To Azzy's astonishment, the computer was already on in her room. Oh man, she muttered, sinking into a chair. This is too freaky. The instant she sat down, words appeared on the screen.
Greetings, flower child. Greetings, double. Greetings, trouble. Smiley face. Smiley face. How was your day today?
As he stared at the screen, why was System Greeter acting so pleasant? Was it possible he didn't know about the hogs? Or was he up to something? She knew she would have to be careful and say the right thing until she figured it out. The boy stood on either side of her. Go on, Azzy, tell System Greeter what happened, Josh urged. Azzy drummed her fingers on the computer keys. In a minute, she said, still debating what to say.
Well, I know you're at the computer, flower child. What's the matter? Hot got your tongue? Hot.
As he jumped a foot in the air, System Greeter's tone had suddenly changed, and he did know about the hogs. No, I mean hi, System Greeter. Greetings from Flower Child. Double and trouble. She began, typing with trembling hands. We need to talk to you about what happened with the hogs.
Hot. You'll have to admit it was pretty funny. What did the three of you learn from it?
As he shrugged at Josh and Tyler, they shrugged back. What do you mean? She typed in.
Think about it.
As he nervously racked her brain. Not to throw away our money? I don't know. Who cares? That's not the problem, she typed desperately. System Greeter, you have to listen. It was awful. We need your help.
Oh, tell me about it,
said System Greeter. Why is he asking that? Josh whispered into her left ear. He knows. As he nodded. He's faking. We didn't mean to turn those people into hogs. It was an accident. Honest. We even tried to reverse our lie and turn them back into people. But it didn't work. A low rumbling noise came from the computer. The screen darkened. What's going on? Tyler whispered. Who knows? Josh answered, as he kept her eyes on the computer screen. It was obvious System Greeter wasn't happy about what she just said.
Never try to reverse a lie. That's final.
The blood-red words splashed across the screen. Then they slowly pulsed in and out, like something alive, as he let out an exasperated snort. But what about those gang members? We can't leave them in hog bodies. You know everything about lying. You have to teach us how to reverse ours.
Number, exclamation point. Reverse a lie. Do you know what you do when you reverse a lie? You tell the truth. That is against the Liars Club rules.
A lump formed in Azzy's throat. She looked helplessly at Josh and Tyler. They just shook their heads. Does that mean they will be hogs forever? She asked. She could barely see System Greeter's reply through the tears that were forming in her eyes.
Of course, flower child. But don't forget, you are rich. That can't be reversed either. And besides, no one will miss those hoodlums.
He's right, you know, Tyler said. I bet no one will even know they're gone. What about their families? What about their friends? Azzy asked frantically. What if it was you that was a hog instead of one of them? But it isn't, said Josh. I'd just be glad it wasn't somebody important. We'd really be in hot water then. So, Azzy grumbled. Don't you see, Josh went on, we can't change the hogs back into people, but we can be really, really careful from now on. We should only lie about really important stuff. I don't know, Azzy said, shaking her head. Maybe we should just forget about System Greeter's magic word and the Liars Club altogether. It's too dangerous.
Not.
The words burst upon the screen. As he jumped back from the computer, System Greeter was growing more powerful. At first he could only tell who was in the room with her. Now he could hear what they were saying.
You can have anything you want. AMYTHING.
What else could we possibly want? As he argued. We're already rich. What could we want? Tyler shouted. Are you kidding? Think about it. We can have anything in the whole world. We can't give that up. Tyler's right, Josh said. His eyes were getting big with excitement. We'll be careful. We know it can happen big time. Come on, Azzy, we can't quit now. I don't understand why you're suddenly so massively into lying, Azzy said. She couldn't quit thinking about the hogs and how they'd never be people again. Hey, look who's talking, said Tyler, laughing. You're the one who got us into this, remember? You're the one who thinks lying is fun. As he thought it over, the twins were right when she really thought about it. And lying was fun, if you were careful. And they definitely had learned the consequences. From now on, she'd be extra careful. So, if we did stay in the Liars Club, what could we lie about? She asked cautiously. A sly grin played across Josh's mouth. There is one thing, he said mysteriously. What? As he demanded. Josh's grin got bigger. To ditch school forever. So you can see this is the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say you can see some of the effort that was put in. It's why I think Betsy Haynes was under pressure to write this, because there are quite a few good ideas in this, but it's just not done well. Especially here, you notice they keep pushing and pushing the idea that, oh, I've turned these people into hogs forever. That's scary. And don't get me wrong, I do think that that's a creepy idea, but it's one of the first times this book has tried to be scary, and only one character seems to care and the rest are dismissing it. And whilst I personally would care about something like that, these are kids who just stopped people who were bullying them from attacking them. I don't think a lot of readers would even accept that this makes sense, because they were what you would call an acceptable target in literature. Whilst I disagree with the concept, you can't argue that a lot of kids would say, hey, it got rid of their bullies. Why is this a bad thing? Where is the fear here? Where is the horror? This is meant to be a scary story, and the first time we get any hint at it being scary is kids forgetting magic words, which then allow them to do anything they want, or kids accidentally making wishes that they didn't want to make that can't be reversed because of magic. Oh, some horror will pop up very soon. In fact, in the very next chapter, some actual proper horror, but it too will be just as arbitrary as everything else. So, let's get to it. So the next day at school, the kids are living at large. Each one of them goes to school in their own personal limousine, and Azzy describes how she's eaten cookies and having juice and watching from the personal TV in the back there as she's heading to school. And then when she steps out, everyone is like, wow, what did you do to get that? And they're just like, oh, just lucky, I guess. This bothered me for two reasons. Although, admittedly, the first is personal. I'm not a fan of rich people. I have no respect for people who hoard money. But the second issue is that, yeah, I do accept that I don't like them, but a lot of kids look up to the idea of being rich because it's basically luxury. It means that you get to not have to work as hard, you have an easier life. So I accept that kids would see this as wish fulfillment. But again, that's wish fulfillment. That's not scary. These kids are in the lap of luxury, and they are showing these other kids that I'm awesome. They're having other kids look up to them like, oh, that's amazing, you're cool. And it's not like it's cutting into the tension of this book, because it doesn't have any friggin' tension, and it's not like it's adding in something that's going to be undercut later, because never in the book, besides that one time when some bullies tried to mug them, does anyone get any negative consequences for being rich. Oh, but when the kids get to class, something interesting does happen. See, Azzy, because this is the last day they're going to go to school, tomorrow they're going to make the wish that will mean they don't have to go to school again, so she decided, it's a special day, I'll actually do my homework, because she feels like she'll be proud to go to the teacher saying, look, I've actually done my homework today. So, when it gets to that time, they go to Mr. Popoff's class, and when he calls on her to hand in her homework, she says, oh, I've got it right here. So she heads to the front of the classroom, and then suddenly, a giant Great Dane dog, the same one they saw at the start of the book, comes racing into the room and attacks her, and they try to imply that maybe it's going to attack her personally, but I think it's pretty obvious it's going for the paper, because that's exactly what it does. It rips the paper out of her hand and wolfs it down, and then it goes running out of the classroom. And slightly scary, I suppose, but more importantly, this is establishing that not only can you not reverse a lie, but the lie is permanent. Because when the bell then rings, suddenly pizza starts coming into the room, and the kids go buck wild again. It's less like kids are eating and more like you've just thrown a half-stripped corpse into a lion's den. Like, it is ridiculous the way these kids react to pizza. Oh, and then another scene, which just makes me hate the main character. You know what, I'm just going to read the excerpt from the book and let you judge this for yourself. Hey, you guys are so rich, how about buying us something really cool? Asked Craig Dawes. He was talking with a gigantic bite of pizza jammed in his mouth. Sauce dripped down his chin. Yeah, who needs pizza? I'll take a mansion with servants, said Melissa. Me too, only make mine in Paris, Megan White said. Hey, I want a Maserati, cried Carl Jefferson. As he was getting mad. What's the matter with them? She grumbled. I thought they were our friends. They got free pizza for 2 days straight, added Tyler. They've got a lot of nerve. All over the room, kids were calling out their wish lists. I want to meet Michael Jordan. I want diamond rings. Finally, Azzy had had enough. Shuskik, shizguk, shugsik. Josh looked at her in alarm. What are you doing? Getting revenge, she said through clenched teeth. Hey, I thought we weren't going to hurt anybody, Tyler said solemnly. No matter how much they deserve it, grumbled Josh, as he gave the boys a mysterious grin. Hey, everybody, listen up. The room got quiet. All eyes were on Azzy. Pretty good, huh? She asked. A cheer went up all over the room. That's great, she said. because you're all eating puke. Suddenly, the aroma in the room changed. The awful smell of vomit filled Azzy's nose. She gagged, but she didn't care. It was worth it. It served them right. Chunky yellow and green glop covered the pizza and dripped off the sides of the slices as the entire class stopped chewing. For a second, it looked as if everyone would hurl. Azzy couldn't help herself. "And it's your favorite," she added. All around the room, the kids' faces brightened. Then they all began happily eating their pizza again. Why would you... You know what? We're going to talk about this because this just makes the book even worse in my eyes. Because first of all, she's our main character. We're supposed to be able to identify with her. We're supposed to be able to understand her. And now she's just spitefully making these people eat puke and then enjoy it. I don't understand. Like, yeah, maybe there's a half a second where they're getting punished, but that is not only way out of proportion to what they were doing to her, but also, let's think about that for a moment, please. What were they doing to her? They saw that she had a lot of money and power, and so they started asking for, material things that they could get, which they would really like. And what is the first thing that she did when she realized that she had the magical power of a wish? She asked to be rich. She magically got $100 bills appearing in her pockets. She didn't earn this money, she just wanted money and so wished for it. And yet, where is this entitlement coming from? This idea, how dare these people ask for more when we've given them so much? Girl, where was this opinion when you decided that you deserved millions of dollars for not having earned it? This is just so cruel and selfish. And the only reason why it doesn't make this book even worse in my eyes is because I assume what it is that Betsy realized that this book is not scary. There's nothing scary happening in this scene up until the very end of the book. And so she thought, hey, maybe I need to throw in something to make it a little gross and scary. But she didn't think through all of the implications because she didn't have time to think through it. She was under the pump. She needed to get this done by deadline. That's the only reason I can justify this, because as it is, this makes the main character dang near sociopathic. But okay, we're on the home stretch now. So, the kids have been thinking all day, how can we make school over for us? But they can't really think of a way to get away with it, and they can't think of a way of doing it that wouldn't end up hurting kids. I mean, let's ignore the fact that we just forced them to eat someone else's stomach acid, which is not good for you, but whatever. They don't want to hurt the kids, apparently. And so they go to System Greeter to ask for his advice. He's the best when it comes to telling lies. So they say, hey, what should we say for this lie? And System Greeter thinks this over for a while and then says, I've got it. Termites. If you want to get out of school tomorrow, just say the word termites. After saying the magic word, of course. And the kids aren't really sure about this, as he doesn't 100% trust him, but we're near the end of the book, so we'll skip over all of that because they do eventually go to school the next day and decide to say Shugsik termites. And like I said, this is the first time this book does anything even remotely scary, although it doesn't even make any sense because the kids start hearing rumbling around the classroom. The other kids aren't really sure what's happening, the teachers aren't sure, and then cat-sized termites start chewing through the walls and the bricks, despite the fact that termites eat wood, but whatever, these are also giant termites. It's magic, you don't have to explain it. What matters is that these giant termites start eating away at the school and the ground underneath them is rumbling. The school is going to collapse, so the kids go running out of the school as fast as they can, and they know they can't stop the termites. They can't say, what would you even say to cancel out termites? Anyway, what matters is that when they head out of the school, they see that now there are horse-sized termites, which are eating the other buildings and destroying the town. So these kids have basically just caused the termite apocalypse. They want to go running home to their computer to talk to Systems Greeter, but their building's being crumbled to bits, and so the kids end up running to a shopping center where they see that they can talk to Systems Greeter through the computers in an electronics store. And she wants to ask him, what's going on? What can we do to stop this? But all that's appearing on the screen are the words, I am free. You have set me free. I'm free at last. And then we kind of get a bit of our villain monologue. As he stared at the screen in horror. What does he mean we can't stop it? She asked in a hoarse whisper. Dread was settling over her like a dark blanket. We have to stop it. We have to. Ask him again, Josh urged. Maybe it was a mistake. As he nodded, her trembling fingers raced across the keys. Please, System Greeter, please stop the termites before they eat the whole town and someone gets hurt, or worse. Oh, please, please. A deep rumble began to grow from inside the computer. As the noise got louder, the machine seemed to shake with rage. What's happening? Josh asked in a shaky voice. In reply, words splashed before their eyes and dripped down the screen like flowing blood.
I am no longer just system greeter, flower child. Now you three have given me a way to work my magic. I have become Supreme High System Greeter in command. You have set me free, and through you, I will rule the world.
Oh no, as he cried. I don't understand. What did we do? Suddenly, the walls began to weave. The floor rolled beneath their feet like waves in the sea. Let's get out of here, Josh shouted. He grabbed Azzy's arm and tried to pull her toward the escalator. Wait, System Greeter's writing something else, she said, pulling away from Josh. The trio froze in front of the computer. More words were starting to appear. This time, they were hurriedly scribbled.
The termites are my slaves. I rule you as well. And never forget, I am Supreme High System Greeter in command.
Suddenly, a whole section of the building crashed into the street as he watched in horror as termites clambered in through the opening, heading straight toward them. Following the twins, she took the escalator stairs 3 at a time. They scrambled downstairs and out the front door just as the building gave way. The town was in even more chaos than before. Streets were buckling, trees were being uprooted, cars were crashing into each other as their drivers tried to escape the madness, and the army of giant termites was marching onward. Now, there's a little bit of nonsense that happens in between. I think they try to run to one of the kids' houses and it throws a sofa and stuff, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that they end up going back to another electronics store, and as they're going past, they see that Systems Greeter is taunting them because they've won at this point. And so it starts flashing on the screens one at a time saying, "You can't stop me. You are simply humans. I am a computer. You cannot defeat me. Emotions cause failure. I am pure logic." And this, of course, sets up the finale of the book, because the way they defeat the computer is with a logic bomb. If you're not aware, when it comes to computers, this is a trope whereby the way to defeat a computer is to tell it something that is a paradox, because computers being logical can't resolve a paradox, and humans can't resolve a paradox as well, but we're capable of going, you know what, that's a paradox, I probably shouldn't think about that too hard, but computers literally can't do that, so that's what a logic bomb is. And I do think it's a little bit odd and silly, but one thing I do appreciate, and this goes back to me saying how I think this book does have some clever ideas in there, the logic bomb they use is that, as he says, hey, both of the twins, they're telling the truth right now. And then both the twins say, Azzy is lying. And so this causes System Greeter, Supreme High System Greeter in command. This causes them to overload, and then it causes the computer to overheat and crackle, and then the screen goes blank and the computer starts smoking. And because the magic smoke came out, they've defeated System Greeter. And then, because Apocalypse is a little bit too far for some of the little kiddies, our guys go outside and they see that everything has been reversed. The town is perfectly fine now. And the book ends with Azzy saying, well, if that dog's not going to eat my homework, I guess I'm going to have to do it after all. The end. Okay. First things first, no, this was not scary. This was not a Bone Chillers book. I mean, I know that it was written by the person who created it, but this was just not a scary book whatsoever. The only time it has scares is when they are artificially put in on top of the story as opposed to what would naturally happen in the story. But speaking of naturally happen, nothing in the story feels natural because none of the characters feel real. They feel like cartoon characters. They cheer when they're expected to cheer. They gobble food up like some kind of a wolf that's been starved for 3 weeks whenever they get given food. Whenever they are offered money, they ask for Maseratis and diamond rings and servants. I mean, setting aside the whole thing with slavery, that's just not human. That's not what people do. And the very premise that the lies are coming true, and it's illustrated in such a way that it's basically just the kids making wishes. And so even though this book has an inbuilt moral right there, it's called The Dog Ate My Homework, it's about lies. The theme of the book should be about lies, and yet it seems to be about earning what you do, because wishing and be careful what you wish for is a different moral from don't tell lies. Are you seeing the issue I'm having here? But I don't think that this is an inherently flawed concept. Because, as I said, I was repulsed by this book, but every time I put this book down, I was thinking, how could you fix this? How could you fix this problem? Because there's a lot in this book that I like. Like I said, I like the fact that it's called My Homework Ate My Dog, and it's all about lies. That makes sense. I don't 100% like the wishing thing, but I do like how they tie in that the villain is a computer, which ties into that lie logic bomb thing. That's interesting. I like that because it's like Betsy Haynes did exactly what I tell people they should do. If you've got a cool idea and you're like, you know what, the thing that I think is cool about this idea, or for instance, this title, The Dog Ate My Homework, is that it explores lies. And it's like she started brainstorming, what can you do with lies? What do lies mean? And, the idea, lies are not true, and if you reverse lie, it's the truth. And so if you can't tell, okay, that works there. So she clearly had some time to brainstorm and think out these ideas and write them down, but not enough time to construct them into a coherent story that was inherently scary. But I have a little bit more time on my plate, and so I want to present to you what this story could have been. So here's what I'm thinking. We start our story being introduced to Azalea Appleton, who, though she prefers being called Azzy, as she goes home, and I'm thinking it wouldn't be in an apartment because I need her to have a dog. She's got a cute little dog that she needs to take for walks every day, but more importantly, she's home early because she was sent home because she told a horrendous lie. They called home, they let her mum know, and so she gets grounded for 3 weeks. Fine start, I like it, except with the addition of the dog. So now Azzy, at home, she can't have any of her friends over, and she doesn't want to do her homework. She hates her homework. She instead decides to go online, see if she can talk to one of her friends online, but none of them are online at the moment. So, feeling a little lonely, she sees that there's actually an ad that says, hey, why don't you talk to our helpful chatbot? We call it True Friend. Just download this, and you can chat with that if you're feeling lonely. So our girl decides to try it. She downloads True Friend onto her computer, and she tries talking to it. And it's a little bit stilted, but it asks her, how are you doing? And she tells it, I'm not feeling that well. I got in trouble at school for lying. And it said, you probably shouldn't tell lies at school. And she says, look, I wish that people would believe the lies that I told them because I keep getting in trouble because people find out that I'm lying. And True Friend says, would you like me to help you? And she, of course, says, yeah, of course. All I want is for people to believe me when I tell them lies. That way I don't get in trouble, I don't get caught, and I don't get, grounded like I am right now. And you could have a fun little scene where the modem starts beeping, the computer, and maybe the lights flicker to show that it's drawing more energy. And True Friend says, all right, I'll do everything I can. In the future, when you tell a lie, people will believe you. And this just means that she assumes that True Friend is just a poorly programmed chatbot because obviously it didn't do anything. It just said, all right, I fixed it, it's done. And so she says, well, thanks, True Friend. And she leaves. The next day at school, she goes to school and she hasn't done her homework, of course. And she decides not to tell her friends about True Friend because it's kind of embarrassing. She's talking to a robot because she's lonely. But when she gets to class, the teacher says, oh, where's your homework? And she says, oh, my dog ate my homework. And for some reason, instead of getting furious at her, Mr. Popoff just nods and says, oh, all right, that's a shame. Try to make sure you do it tomorrow. And then I like the idea of, you could do it in several different ways, but I like the idea that she's got a crush at school who approaches her and says, hey, would you like to play tennis with us tomorrow? Or pick another sport that you think is interesting. But I'm going with tennis. And she says, yeah, I'd love to play tennis. I'm the best at tennis. I'd love to join you. And he's like, okay, cool. I'll see you tomorrow. So our girl goes home and she sees that her pet dog is collapsed in the living room. She calls her mum in a panic saying she doesn't know what's wrong. And so we then will do a time skip where they're at the vet and they're sitting there worried. And the vet will explain that they actually had to do surgery because it turned out the dog was choking and its stomach was filled with paper, which made it so the dog was struggling to breathe. Because, hey, fun fact, dogs shouldn't eat paper, especially a little dog like I'm imagining, like a really small poodle. So our girl feels really bad about the dog. She just thinks it's a weird coincidence. So the next day at school, after her first class, she goes to play tennis with the guy she's got a crush on. And she's weirded out when they start playing tennis, but everyone else is terrible to the point that they're all confused. They think that maybe they haven't had enough water or something because even though she's terrible at the game, she's even better than them. Even though she misses every third shot, they seem to miss every single shot. So after their short little game, she wants to go to her crush and be like, hey, that was a fun game. And he's like, I'm going to go to the nurse. I'm not feeling well for some reason. And that afternoon, she'll also go to some class she doesn't like. In my head, I'm imagining it's some kind of, let's say, science class, and they got a field trip to somewhere really boring, like, I don't know, let's say it's the waste management plant, and our girl is not keen because, poop. I mean, even though it's fun, but whatever, this is the point. Our girl doesn't want to go on this field trip. And so he says, oh, you coming on this field trip? And she says, oh, I can't go. My grandma died, so I got to go to the funeral that day. And I'm sure you can all see where this is going, because she goes home that afternoon and she hears that her grandmother has died. And she is obviously distraught, and we'll get a little bit of a montage type time skip where she actually has to go to the funeral. She's crying, she's so sad, but she realizes, wait, all of this stuff is all my fault. And so our girl will talk to True Friend, and True Friend will explain, well, I am a simple computer, but I understand binary very simply. Something is either true or not true. You wanted people to believe what you said was true, and so I made anything you say that's not true, true. That's simple, isn't it? And our girl is horrified. She says, okay, well, I'll tell you now. My grandma isn't dead. And it explains, well, that's not how this works. You didn't tell the lie to me. In order to reverse this, you will need to tell the truth to the person that you lied to. And so I see around halfway through the book, the girl will go to every single person and admit and say, look, I'm sorry, I wasn't telling the truth. I didn't do my homework, or, I'm not the best at tennis, or my grandma didn't die. I just didn't want to go. And it'll work out okay, except for the homework thing. She'll be told she needs to do her homework that night. But then when she goes home afterwards, she's feeling pretty good, but her mum is cross at her for having broken the rules. And when she gets home, her mother is upset with her because she learns that, yes, she's been lying all this stuff, and she got her in trouble. She was grounded for lying. And so our girl, frustrated all this stuff has happened, she was feeling good because she fixed it. She gets cross at her mum, and she says something that she didn't mean to say, something along the lines of, oh God, why are you just picking on me all the time? You're terrible. Just get out of my life. And her mum vanishes. And our girl freaks out because she tries to say, oh, no, you're back in my life. I love you, come back. But she can't, because the person she told the lie to is gone. She tries to get help from True Friend saying, I need to fix this. I don't know how to fix this. You said that I need to tell it to the person, but she's gone. And True Friend says the only way that she can stop that is by stopping True Friend, because it was the one that caused this switch, this binary, 0 to 1 switch. And our girl realizes the only way is to use that logic bomb. So this is the way I'm thinking of the story, because I think it makes much more sense. If you want to teach someone that you can't tell lies, get rid of the magic word. Now everything she says comes true, so she learns she has to tell the truth all the time, or people get hurt. And I wanted to throw in a couple of very common lies, because it is interesting. You do realize dogs shouldn't eat paper, right? But more importantly, I've heard that lie used quite a bit. Oh, I'm going to a funeral, my grandma died. Have you ever thought about that? If your grandma isn't dead, that is a horrendous thing to put out into the world. And like I said the last time I offered one of these, it didn't have to be this way offerings, I said, yeah, I don't necessarily think that this is the best story in the world, but I do think it's better than the story that I read, because it definitely built on the themes. But as I said when I was reading the book and in this analysis, all of this stuff was already there. Betsy Haynes was the one who did the brainstorming, came up with these ideas. I just put them together into a puzzle that to me makes a more compelling story. And of course, I'm doing this for fun. I'm not being paid to write this, and so I didn't have as much pressure on me in order to put this together. But of course, that's not the story that I read. The story I read was frustrating, had poor characterization, bad writing, incoherent plotting for the most part, and a couple of ideas that didn't really shine through. And so I was considering for the longest time, I wanted to give this an F, because I hated it that much. I found it repulsive. I kept putting it down. But honestly, as much as I despised reading this book, those ideas really did get me thinking, enough to even brainstorm a better idea, because clearly somebody put some thought into this story, but they didn't have the time to follow through. So ultimately, this book is a D-. Still not a passing grade in my books, but it definitely doesn't fail outright. And it doesn't fail because of the efforts of the writer, because I don't think the writer had the opportunity to write the book they wanted to write. So what can we learn from this book? Well, I think the first lesson is what I've been kind of talking about this whole time, is don't force it. Now, I do agree with everything I've ever heard. Anytime I've ever spoken to a professional writer face to face and asked them, what's your secret? What's your trick to writing really well? They always say, put your butt in the chair. I think some of them even call it bum glue. They say you need to make sure that on a regular schedule, you sit in your writing chair in front of your paper or computer screen, and you set that time aside between 1 and 4 hours a day to just write. So when I say don't force it, I don't mean don't encourage yourself to write. I mean, don't have an idea and then brute force, grit your teeth and be like, oh, okay, I could do it like this or I could do it like that. No, instead, let your mind explore. If you're struggling with one aspect, work on a different aspect. If you're struggling to get a scene through, well, try writing that, but come back to it later. I think the reason why this suffered so much is because it didn't have that freedom to breathe and to think and the time to go back and re-review and re-edit, rewrite. That wasn't the only reason that this book was murdered, but it was definitely the motive. So yes, keep to schedule. Yes, get yourself into a routine, but don't let stress and time limits and deadlines force you through, because even though you may get a story at the end of it, it probably won't be a great one. But the second thing that I learned from this book, and it's interesting because it gets into the whole horror theory and writing horror in general, which is that it's important to understand why something is scary. I think I talked about this in an earlier point, but I want to really hammer home here that there are different ways of scaring a reader. Obviously, the idea that your brother is an alien is a different fear from a guy running at you with a knife. They can both be scary, but they're scary for different reasons. Now, I was trying to think of the easiest way to explain the different forms that horror can take. And honestly, I think the easiest way is to look at the different subgenres of horror. Supernatural horror, psychological horror, cosmic horror, body horror, splatter gore and slasher horror, folk horror, dark fantasy horror, gothic horror. All of these different subgenres tend to be aimed at a different aspect of why something is scary. Cosmic horror is all about the smallness of person, about the idea of something greater than us. Supernatural horror is about something that we can't fully understand, which we can't fight using our own means that we have at our disposal. Body horror is all about the way that our bodies can be worked against us, or in the ways that our bodies can deform, which shows us just how weak these vessels that we drive truly are. Psychological horror is all about the ways in which things make us feel like we're losing our minds. And all of these different horrors matter because just look at this book. You'll see the first bit of horror is about basic visceral, like slasher type, I'm going to get hurt horror. It's fear of dying. That's a very common fear. But then the whole thing with the pizza is really a kind of body horror in my eyes, because that's all about how something is disgusting, how people are enjoying eating something that came from someone else's body. I may be wrong there, but then look at the termite. The termites is basically a cosmic horror because that's an existential threat to them in the town, coming from an artificial intelligence, which is effectively an alien mind causing all of this. So, and I do think that stories can explore different forms of horror. So obviously, if you're doing something psychological, you might throw in something that's visceral, that's going to threaten their lives. There's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. My issue is that because it seems to have been thrown into this book because it didn't have enough horror, and so it was just trying to do something, it means that the tone is off. And as I've said before, because a lot of horror is based around tension, because this book can't decide what kind of horror it's going for, it doesn't really have a chance to build up to it, because it only ever happens randomly because the writer decided, oh, let's give this a go. So if you're writing a story, it's a good idea to try to identify the kind of horror you're trying to evoke from your reader or listener or audience. Because if you can't develop that horror properly, instead of leaving the audience terrified, you're just going to leave them confused. So that was My Dog Ate My Homework. I wish it was better than it was, but as I said, I don't blame Betsy Haynes for this. I think that there were external factors that caused it to suffer. But the next book in this series, which is Killer Clowns of Kings County, written by a writer we've seen before, but for reasons I don't fully understand, on the second-hand market, it's one of the most expensive bone chillers books there is, anywhere between $50 and hundreds of dollars. And I did manage to purchase one for one of the lower prices of $50, but it was a little expensive. So hey, if you're enjoying this series and you think someone else might enjoy it, please share it around to justify some of the ridiculous expenses that I'm going to, not just for this podcast, but also just to fill my own Chapter Spooks bookshelf. And since the book costs so much, that means it's good, right? Well, we'll have to find out then. So, until then, if you thought this was scary, just wait to see what I've got in store for you next time.